Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Welcome to the Steam Summer Sale recommendation list here. The annual time of year. Well, I say annual; it's more like seasonal time of year that gaming goes and does unfortunate things to our wallets. So let's go ahead and give this a little bit of a look here. I have a few things that I've gone and picked out, though we are going to be kind of shooting through the list here to look at some of the deals that are available. Just wanted to throw some recommendations your way. Okay, first and foremost, because I got to bring this up every time. So Tactics Ogre Reborn, this one's always on sale. I mean, obviously for a channel like this, I'm gonna start off here. I will say though, this is a price that's available pretty much all the time. This isn't a summer sale exclusive kind of thing. I still wish that at some point they would sell this soundtrack separately. Like, I regretted not picking up the soundtrack on the Steam version when I originally got it. And yeah, sure enough, you gotta basically pay full price to get the soundtrack. So I'm hoping that'll change at some point. For those that haven't played it, I don't know what you're doing in this channel, but for those that haven't played it, Tor is essentially a SRPG in which. In which there's a really heavy emphasis placed on kind of world interaction, story interaction, that kind of thing, where effectively every choice that you make, both directly and indirectly, is going to be affecting the world in some way, and this leads to a lot of really fun replayability. Just due to the fact that it seems to react to all kinds of things that you wouldn't normally kind of expect it to do. Things like whether or not somebody got lied to, whether they had certain bits of information at one point, things like whether or not you saved somebody or didn't or whatnot. And it's just a really, really incredibly replayable game. And this version of it, to my mind, is the best official version that's out there by far. So thankfully, it finally got its very positive and mostly positive. I love to see that as somebody that covers this thing extensively, because that whole thing for the longest time where we had a lot of the old kind of PSP fans losing their dang minds and were like, technically there's less skill slots. We're going to ignore the fact that all those skill slots do way more now. But anyway, it's just great to see that it's getting the love it deserves here. But this is one of the best flowing SRPGs you will ever play, full stop. Like, the game flow going on here is absolutely on lock. Like right from the get-go. The way that they have everything paced out, you basically never have to stop and grind or anything. You never have to go out of your way to go cheese mechanics or whatnot. You can just essentially take the units that you have, do interesting stuff with them, and then just kind of adapt to the world around you. It's a really fun system. I have way too many guides out for this thing at this point. But yeah, incredible game. Definitely one of my like over the course of the last couple of years, this became one of the most played things in my library across multiple devices. So yeah, great game. Gonna start there, but I will mention that that $24.99. This is the standard sale that this thing gets all the time. So we're mostly covering it here because that's where we got to start. But let's go ahead and talk about a few other things that are on sale. So there's quite a lot, obviously, and some of these deals are going to be, well, not exactly created equal. So, first of all, Wildermyth you don't see on sale that often, but if you're like me and you like to see games that again have a lot of story interaction and whatnot. The idea behind Wildermyth is that it's effectively trying to do the kind of storytelling tabletop experience kind of thing. So it's got a lot of really fun elements as far as kind of making the story happen around the choices that you've made and whatnot. A lot of interaction with the environment as they're trying to show off in the previews here. Really fun style behind this one, and this is one of those ones that I'm constantly waiting to show up at like 80 or 90% off or something because I'm a cheap bastard. But yeah, I love watching this one personally. It's just a really fun game to look at. Again, earned that overwhelmingly positive. So yeah, there's that. Great game. Definitely worth the $17.49. Like, if you ever see anything that is not picked up on this list that I'm covering here today, please again remember that I'm just a cheap bastard. And also in this case, I heard it was coming out on Switch. So in that case, for something like this is something that I know my daughter would probably love. So I probably would end up picking it up there personally. But speaking of great games that are in the SRPG list here, let's go ahead and talk about Phil Seal. As always, the sale came about, and as always, the sale is steep. So, Phil Seal plus its DLC is $772. Yes, this should be on your list. So, okay, Fail Seal is effectively for those folks that really liked Final Fantasy Tactics. Now, you might say the art style is not tickling your pickle, so to speak, right from the get-go. Okay, couple of notes here just to bring this up. That particular observation comes up for a lot of people before they try it and then end up loving it. See, this is, as I mentioned, essentially for the folks that really liked the FFT class system, because effectively it is a just gigantic improvement on that class system. Mechanically speaking, this has some of the coolest in kind of interpretations of a lot of these systems that I've ever seen. So for example, instead of just simply, having your, let's say something like your chemist having a throw item ability, effectively your gear would determine how far you would be able to throw things. Your skills would determine the kind of potency of your items and what's available. Your ability to explore the overworld would determine how many item stocks you had on hand. Your thieves were doing more than stealing equipment because you can steal item stocks back and forth from each other between you and the enemy units. If you have somebody like necromancers or whatnot, instead of just preventing enemies from reviving or preventing them from getting their revive items, you might potentially just revive them for your own side as zombies. There's so many cool things that are constantly going on in the system that it's absolutely wild. And on top of that, the customization options are beyond top notch. Like all of the extremely positive stuff that gets said about this game is effectively at least partially due to the amount of customization that you have on hand. Because if there's any mechanics that you don't particularly like, if there's some mechanics you do particularly like, if you want to add in kind of randomization options, if you want to add New Game Plus options or whatever else, you can fully tweak the difficulty to your liking, up to and including, whether you want a permadeath system in there, or whether you want no penalty for units getting downed, or whether you wanted a sort of hybrid system. It is a really cool way that this is all set up. And additionally, if you are on the PC version or Steam Deck, you can actually throw in your own custom portraits if you want to get absolutely goofy with it. General premise of this game is basically that you're a rolling police department that's policing supernatural stuff, give or take. That is a very surface take. The story is there. It basically is there to justify the stuff that you're doing, because you're there to build teams, to build units, to just do cool combinations. Experiments around with a lot of interesting combinations of classes and skills and items and whatever else. And you constantly have these little aha moments of like, okay, this character is a spear specialist, kind of missing some of the options from the axe tree here. Wait a minute, look, we over here we just found the materials to go and craft a thing that is technically an axe but also classed as a spear. So we got this mini halberd. Okay, we go ahead and we dual wield that. We go ahead and maybe combine that in with some like debuff effects on crit. We combine that with some crit boosting skills and such. It's really fun. And on top of that, it even has a bunch of kind of little mini exploration side quests and whatever else, where you're going and trying to do interesting traversal puzzles for the purpose of collecting unusual things to do things like boost your item stocks and whatever else. It's great. It's great. And the kind of pencil drawn aesthetic, I know is one of those things that I wasn't sure about at first, but man, it really freaking grew on me. So yeah, incredible game there. 80% off right now. Do it. Go get it. They're doing a live thing on it right now. Just go and give these guys some love. It is incredible. So yeah, Fail Seal, and absolutely amazing. Next, or not Red Codex. We need Rad Codex. So next up, speaking of incredible developers that are absolutely trying their hardest on everything, we've got Rad Codex. Okay, so this isn't going to be as steep of a sale, but these guys don't come up on sale that often. I say these guys, as in these games. The developer is basically like one guy. Just actually to mention this here, a lot of the indie projects that are going to be mentioned are going to be very extreme indie type of titles. Like, from what I understand, Fail Seal was something to the tune of 2 people and a Kickstarter budget. In the case of the Rad Codex bundle, it's essentially something to the tune of 1 guy, some occasional help, and their proprietary engine. So yeah, this bundle is probably worth picking up all at once, just because you do get 28% off everything instead of the usual 20% here. I don't see these go on more sale than this that often. Off the top of my head, I can't remember a time that they did. Um, but these games are really, really fun. All of them are going to be on the same engine that he's just sort of been tinkering with over time. And I know for me personally, the one, like, if there was one to recommend, usually what I hear folks recommending is Horizon's Gate because it's the most ambitious of the bunch. For me personally, like, Kingsvane is one of my favorite games in years. Like, the general idea is that you've got, again, a very FFT-esque kind of class building system. You've got very Tactics Ogre-esque mechanics in terms of pushing units around and having a huge amount of physicality to your fights. But everything that you do can interact with the world itself. So, for example, there's a bridge in your way. How are you handling that? Like, well, you might take the puzzle approach, go find some nearby boulders and move them out of the way and, get one of those boulders in the river, and now you can cross it. Or you have a cryomancer on your team, so you just have them freeze the river. Or you have a dragoon on your team, and you have them go and jump across the gap. Or let's say there's a door on the other side, so you have somebody that's got some telekinesis powers, so they might be able to go open the door through a window to hit a lever on the other side, so that then you can cross that way. There's a lot of really fun puzzles to this. Hell, I wasn't even mentioning things like, oh, there's a switch on the other side. What if we cause an earthquake across this wall? It's a really, really fun experience in terms of puzzle solving, exploration, class building. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. And this is actually, specifically Kingsvane's the one I'm going to be talking about the most part here, because this is one of those ones that really handled one of those aspects that a lot of FFT likes don't necessarily cover that well, which is the JP system or the skill point system or whatever else. Because while technically it has a skill point system, the way that they handled it is really cool, where effectively your exploration is how you end up unlocking those particular points. So instead of doing grind fights, effectively you're incentivized for the vast majority of the game to go and explore the world, to go and attempt to find fights to fight, and kind of deal with the challenges that they may bring, and potentially use the environment to your advantage. In a lot of interesting ways. And so this creates this sort of challenge run mindset right from the start, where you're trying to explore the world, trying to cheese fights again in ways where it's like, oh, these guys are all melee units, so we're going to go ahead and drag some furniture over from this other room, and we're going to just kind of create a tower defense situation over here. We'll set a couple units with spears and kind of auto attacking abilities, so every time that they try to pass through those barricades you just made, both of them end up shooting out with those spears. Maybe put down some plants to go regenerate them over time so that they can actually tank that stuff. Maybe go ahead and use something like a large area of effect spell, because the AI can see the stuff that you're going to do. Again, kind of like how a lot of FFT mods handle it. So you can use area of effect spells to basically dissuade units from going in a particular direction. It's incredible. And I should actually also point out there are variations to scenes and different ways that stuff can play out depending on how you play it. Like, I was really surprised that there were entirely different endings and entirely different outcomes to pretty much all the story events than what I did in my first playthrough, where somebody was posting a speedrun on the week of release, and it's like, wow, I recognize nothing of what happened in that ending. That's pretty awesome, because I thought some of this stuff was linear, and at first it might seem that way, but again, it really kind of rewards exploration and kind of just exploring everything around you. So anyway, really, really highly recommend this one. It's one of these ones that I do hope they succeed in their goal of eventually getting it to something like Switch or whatnot, because I know that'd be an easy day one purchase for me on that one. Now, to mention their other ones, they all are roughly similar in that particular regard in terms of your skills going and affecting the world around you, and in terms of this kind of a FFT-like class building where you've got primary and secondary classes. However, unlike that one, they're not limited in terms of their equipment, so anybody can use anything. But the kind of like ratio of skill slots and equipment and whatever else is different in every one of these games, so I'm not going to expand on that too much. But Horizon's Gate is typically the one that's recommended of the bunch. And that's simply because it's the one with the most kind of stuff in it. So it's kind of very similar class system, but largely it's based around this idea of exploring the world in your fleet of ships. So you basically have a customized ship fleet. You're going and finding ports and doing trade missions, and fighting bosses and what have you. And yeah, it's a really chill version of that same experience. Actually, one more thing I should probably mention is that every one of these games actually comes with kind of different race types and whatever else for each one of them. So, like in this one, for example, you're playing as that ship captain, so I figured it would be funny to play as a guy that's basically a blind, kind of a blind fish person type situation, called, or that was completely blue, named Captain Dabudi Dabadai. But, either way, custom characters, custom teams, and what have you, and interesting world exploration. The whole kind of shipboarding mechanics and just kind of ship battles in general is really cool. So yeah, really ambitious game. This one, in my personal experience, is way more ambitious, but a little bit more buggy than Kingsbane. But again, everyone's stuff may vary. Just know that for all of these games, again, their ambition far exceeds their employee count. So expect that there's going to be those cases where you're gonna kind of regret not saving more often. Typically, you want to save pretty regularly. So yeah, just so you know, stuff can happen, but yeah, incredible games all the same. I know personally I was planning to pick up these two because, like, dude, I want to play everything that this guy has made ever since trying Kingsbane. Like, it's freaking amazing. Okay, so speaking of really good values, next, I wanted to talk about what's going on with XCOM. So this one also typically comes up pretty darn cheap. So if you've never played, like, say, XCOM Enemy Unknown, Enemy Within, really solid titles. I'm actually really surprised that that comes up to $6 rather than the other way around. So just so you know, their DLC structure is. I like the amount of stuff that's on this list is a little, I don't know, a little messed up in my opinion. But as far as what you would need for the first one of these, so Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within, I believe you would need both of these. Enemy Within's kind of like the final version. Enemy Unknown's kind of the launch version. But typically, the one that folks start out with these days is the XCOM 2 collection. Which is, again, basically $6 for one of the best SRPG experiences you're going to get. Now, one thing that's worth mentioning is that while this is something that's going to be here, if you buy the bundle, it actually seems to include TLP, which is actually the unique thing that the PC version gets. So the reason that this is important is because this game is normally bizarrely overpriced on PC. Because, like, normally they want $60 for XCOM 2, they want $40 for War of the Chosen, and then $8 for, TLP, and 20 for the reinforcement package. Like, it's way too much normally. So even on sale with all of this stuff discounted, you basically get the PC exclusives and everything else for basically $5 and change, right? However, if you are somebody that plays on something like Switch or console or what have you, yes, I am considering the Switch a handheld, not a console, whatever. It's worth mentioning that technically the XCOM 2 collection thing shows up on sale for $5 on everything else all the time. This is the main difference between them. So what's the deal with this game? Why does it matter? So XCOM 2 is effectively the king of, like, just like world interaction SRPG type of stuff. So you have a sort of campaign element to the whole game where effectively you're trying to research stuff and explore the world and build up your team and what have you. If any of your soldiers die, unless they get lucky and start a bleed out timer instead, they are just dead kind of on the spot there. And so it's effectively the story of your kind of ragtag group of soldiers trying to fight against what is effectively a world taken over by, kind of ridiculously overpowered aliens and whatnot. So yeah, it's every map is going to have its own bizarre mechanics and whatever else, but it is an absolute ton of fun. And so the reason that I'm pointing out War of the Chosen here is because XCOM 2 was a little bit rough on launch, and War of the Chosen is just like the previous one, like the final version, give or take. It really, really heavily optimized the game. It added a ton of features that people wanted, like for example these nemesis enemies that we're seeing right here, who are going to regularly hunt down your people to try to hunt down your ship and try to shoot it down. Where you'll like if you end up playing badly enough, they will just kind of shoot down your ship, and you have this big defense mission. We've got interesting things like world events constantly popping up. So, like, you have the option to set up permanent world events where, like, let's say there's just a zombie invasion now, and just every map that you run into, there's just a bunch of random zombies that pop out if any explosions go off. So then suddenly you have that to deal with. So you've got, like, neutral enemies to deal with all over the place. You've got stuff that's directly going after you that's available all over the place. And on top of this, it's worth mentioning that every one of your units is fully customizable, including a sort of semi-randomized secondary skill tree. All of your weapons and equipment and everything else are extremely physical, so like if you miss a shot, it'll end up blowing away something nearby there. If you, for example, use grenades and such, you can blow units straight through the floor. There's, for example, something like your what? How am I blanking on what they're called right now? Your Reapers. There we go. Would have things like, for example, remote start detonations for anything that can explode whatsoever. So like they go in, with a sort of alternate stealth mode that they have, and just kind of remote detonate a just let's say a truck right next to a gas station, straight into into a patrol that you were trying to avoid. So extremely good game mechanically speaking. The story is like straight up Saturday morning cartoon. But yeah, if you're in it for the mechanics, god damn, XCOM 2 is good. Like one of the absolute top end of the genre, and yeah, they definitely threw some budget at this one too. So it does have the occasional bugs on account of how many mechanics are going on, but like it's usually pretty charming. Usually it's stuff like, oh yeah, it just randomly glitched out and I blew open a few extra walls, and now that entire building just fell on top of a guy, so I'm not exactly complaining. So yeah, really really good game. Actually, speaking of, I wonder how Xenonauts is doing. Speaking of XCOM likes here. Okay. So, alright. That's kind of interesting. I would have expected original Xenonauts to actually go a little bit lower here. Okay, so if you're looking for something a little bit more low-key, I'm going to throw Xenonauts out there because it's $7 right now. So, Xenonauts is basically a kind of a crowd-funded, not quite remake, but reimagining of very classic XCOM. So again, similar situation, alien invasion going on, and you got all your soldiers doing their thing here. However, this is this is effectively a far more kind of a, well, like it said, strategic version of that same thing. So, like, instead of trying to create your own kind of economy based off of how much stuff you can manufacture or whatever else, it is a straight-up defensive simulator. So, you have situations where you're never really going to be able to outrun the clock unless you've completed the game entirely over the course of your campaign. Every shot from a unit can potentially take out any of your units. The armor system is surprisingly functional in this one. Not to mention the AI gets absolutely brutal. Like those moments where, let's say, part way through, like one of those moments that really always stuck out to me about Xenonauts was one of the first campaigns that I thought I was doing really well, and then suddenly the purple Cesians showed up, and all I see is just one random alien-looking guy, just a brief flash of something purple in the trees, and suddenly all the grenades start flying over the tree line and just wipe out the entire team. So yeah, there's a lot of if you're somebody that loves scouting elements in your games, that loves to plan out your research and whatnot, and really likes budgetary restraints, this one is going to be just the thing for you. The setting is basically, it's the Cold War, and you're trying to deal with this same XCOM invasion with far more limited technology at the very start. And this leads to a lot of really fun interactions, like not necessarily a spoiler, but like the fact that you can't actually the fact that you're not able to sell your stuff at a profit is brought up as a kind of curious point, because they're like, we should be able to do this. Why is it that nobody's surprised by our laser guns and things? And the actual plot reveal for that is pretty fun because, of course, you're getting robbed by the Soviets. That's what they do. Anyway, so yeah, it's a really fun game. And I should probably mention the community edition is probably the one that you should be playing if you end up getting this one. It actually is recommended by the devs themselves. And also, if you wanted one of the most kind of bizarrely expansive mod projects out there, the X Division mod for this one is insanely good. Granted, it's hard to lore justify laser T-Rexes with Phoenix powers, but it is an incredible mod all the same. So yeah. Sometimes the splash page for X Division kind of comes across as a little bit, edgy as it were, but it does a lot of really fun stuff with things like your plane dodge mechanics and stuff like that. But yeah, a really good game. Would recommend it. I would have expected it to be a little bit less than this, but again, for how much game you're getting, that is good. Don't be a cheap bastard like me. Everything will be more enjoyable. Xenonauts 2 is actually still kind of sort of in. Well, not kind of sort of. It is still actively going on. Mechanically speaking, it does improve on a lot of things that the original did. It does have a lot of more interesting stuff, and I think once all said and done, I think Xeno 2 will probably be kind of the definitive version of this idea that they were trying to do here. As of right now, it is regularly getting reworked, so you get a lot of those same mechanics that are far smoothed out from the original version. Just know that again, stuff may just suddenly change on a whim. So yeah, stuff will happen. But yeah, really fun kind of plane mechanics as before. Really fun combat mechanics, really smooth gameplay. Definitely smoothed out the experience from the first one quite a bit there. Kind of a cool armor system and whatnot. All of the different weapon tiers all function differently. Again, if you're into classic XCOM, consider giving these two a look. They don't come up, done well that often, and this one is a really solid one. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, I personally really loved Xeno 2. I don't know if technically I have to check the box for getting it for free, because technically they did send me a preview code, but technically I already had bought it at that point. So we just ended up having a giveaway for that. So yeah, really good game. Would recommend it for sure. It's not the biggest sale in the world, but this one also just happened. So 30 bucks or 30% off is definitely not bad. Actually, speaking of 30 bucks, right now, if you were to choose between the two, I would say Tactics Ogre all day, every day, no matter what. But it's probably worth mentioning that this is one of those rare cases that we got something like Triangle on sale. This is a game that is exactly okay. It's got really fun combat mechanics. A lot of folks like the art style, and the thing is, it is effectively a great demo for what could have been a way better game. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Just don't expect it to go as deep as it claims it does. So this is one of those ones that I joke about and put down pretty regularly, because it's like, here's so many good mechanics and they failed to execute on most of them more than one time. So for example, really cool voting system where you're supposed to convince all of your party to vote in favor of what you would consider for your decisions there. And then most of the time you can just directly tell them who to vote for, so it kind of throws that out the window. Also, most of the time, a lot of those decisions don't actually do the thing that they say that they're going to do. Like, in a lot of cases, you very literally have basically the exact same scene that plays out afterwards. Like, the most hilarious of which is like, oh yeah, you went and supported this criminal. How could you? Kills criminal, gives you a promotion to his job. Like, oh, you decided to turn this guy in. Great, thank you. Kills that criminal, you get promoted to take his job. Like, it's... there's a lot of stuff like this, though. It is funny to mention here that the developer Art Dink is actually going to be the same folks that did the PS1 port for the original Tactics Ogre back in the day. They also did Aquanauts Holiday, which I played way too much of, and is probably never going to get seen again on any platform. That game was weird. But yeah, it's worth mentioning that for 30 bucks, this game is worth 30 bucks. I don't think it's worth that 60, but it is a fun experience all the same if it's what you were looking for. Again, every mechanic in it, just know that you kind of got to temper your expectations. Like you run into the character with the trap mechanic, it's like, oh, it's cool. They're gonna do so much more with this. Try to ignore the fact that that's all the traps you're getting. Like this weather mechanic, they're gonna do so much with this. Try to ignore that that's the only weather mechanic you're getting. Like, oh look, they're gonna have all of these field effects. Try to ignore that they don't scale and basically stop being relevant 5 minutes after they're introduced. But again, it's a cool sampler platter of ideas that they can do way better in the sequel. And as long as you squint your eyes hard enough, you're gonna see a lot of fun stuff here. So, you know, give it a look sometime if you haven't yet. Just again, temper your expectations there. What is the deluxe edition? This thing had DLC. What is this? Is this just? I assume it's like the soundtrack or something. Actually, it's worth mentioning. The soundtrack has some fun nods to Tactics Ogre in there. That the one of the deploy screen themes sounds a hell of a lot like the meeting scene theme from TO there. So yeah, I don't know what's in this exactly. Like what's different about the deluxe edition. What does it say anywhere? I'm assuming it's just the soundtrack. I don't know. Square Enix loves to do this thing where they include their soundtrack in a game, but then you can't buy the soundtrack separately. So yeah, that was a real bummer for me about Tactics Ogre because I want that soundtrack on there, but you can't buy it separately. Anyway, moving on. All right, other games that I expect to be on sale right now. Monster Sanctuary, you're on sale. Yeah, this is definitely worth $5. Okay, so not an SRPG in the traditional sense, but a really, really fun kind of Metroidvania Pokemon type situation. Okay, so this is going to be Monster Sanctuary. This is what's this? Okay, it does include soundtrack. What is this? This one will actually tell us what it is. What is Monster Journal? Let's see. They're actually mixed. Oh no, what happened? Why is it mixed? Okay, so Monster Sanctuary is effectively what if Symphony of the Night was Pokemon, give or take. Okay, I don't know why it's not loading. I think it's getting overwhelmed right now because of too many things going on. But it's so it's this really fun idea where you're effectively this kind of trainer person going along and dealing with various world events, but the creatures that you bring with you will essentially all be your world traversal options. And you might have noticed in that little preview window here that includes things like, for example, a permadeath mode if you should want it. That it does have things like Nuzlocke modes built in. It does have things like speedrun modes built in. This game was absolutely built with love from top to bottom. You can customize all of your creatures in really fun ways. They all have a ton of personality, and yeah, it's really endearing. It's a very, very, very endearing game. Again, very much earning that very positive there. It does even have an online PvP community if you're one of them competitive sorts. But very fun art style. It plays very fluidly. I mean, for obvious reasons, it never really slows down. But yeah, effectively what you're seeing here is just a ton of world exploration, pretty cozy platforming and whatnot, and you'll see a lot of fun world interaction given the monsters that you've got on hand. Like you saw there, some will make you fly, some will be there for opening up puzzles, some will be there for things like, for example, you walk into a dark room and it's like if you have a bat with you, you can use echolocation to see around you, or if you have something that's got fire, you can use that to light up the area around you. So lots of fun world interactions, and additionally, as you saw there, the combat is actually team-based. So effectively, you have a full team of 6, but you can deploy 3 at a time. And so this means that it's constantly doing team battles, but it's got this really fun. Okay, I thought I muted it again, but that was just me turning down the sound a little bit. But it's got this fun momentum mechanic where essentially every action that you take will affect an action after. So, for example, let's say you have a unit do a bunch of attacks early on. Every one of those little attacks will kind of will add to your combo counter, which you'll see up here. So the higher your combo, the more you do, whether it's healing, whether it's damage, or whatever else. So you're kind of incentivized to start off with a lot of small, quick attacks. That's go to break something down, like maybe you're going and picking on somebody's weakness to a particular attack type, and then using somebody else to set up buffs or debuffs or shields or what have you. And then you have somebody show up with some big explosion move at the end, and it's a really, again, just it's a really fun kind of momentum mechanic that ends up playing out there. So that's really good. And in terms of just how much world there is quite a friggin' lots of this one. I know personally I've gone and started several permadeath runs of this game, just because for some reason my stubbornness self decides that decided that I have to beat the thing on permadeath or it doesn't count. And so far, still like for a couple of years now, it's kept me entertained in terms of going and retrying and trying different randomized stuff and what have you. The world design is very fun. Actually, that particular cabin reminds me of it, because there's moments where you'll, for example, need a particular item. And so I remember that particular cabin, there was somebody that specifically just wanted a carrot, of all things. And I had just picked up a carrot, but I had just gone and fed it to one of my dudes there to improve their health. And so I was like, dang, just used the carrot. I thought it was just a food item. Wasn't expecting to need that again. That's kind of annoying. And then immediately run into a puzzle where upon completion of that puzzle, there's just a carrot in a treasure chest. Like, yeah, we knew you were going to do that. So again, great design. The devs are really cool people too, so there's that. In fact, they're actually working on another one right now. Okie dokie. So let's go ahead and talk about what else is on this list, because I had some stuff on my card here, I remember. Oh yeah, worth mentioning, Disco Elysium, $4 right now. You don't see this one on sale that often, so that's really amazing. Darkest Dungeon is also $4 right now. If you've never played it, effectively it is a sort of strategy RPG dungeon crawler kind of thing, where you are managing the kind of stress and overall long-term well-being of your team of mercenaries. They're trying to get through the Eldritch Abomination that is your house. Extremely fun game, and pretty much everybody's heard of the narrator by this point. If you haven't, I don't know how you did that. And interestingly enough, apparently you actually can get both of them for a bundle for $20 right now, which is pretty good. Since Darkest Dungeon 2 is actually still seeing expansions and whatnot, so that's cool stuff. Now, this oftentimes gets misunderstood as very RNG heavy combat, since you are essentially your team will feel very weak at the start. This doesn't necessarily mean that they grow to be exceptionally strong or something. It is you learning mechanics. Because as you learn the mechanics of this game, your team starts to feel more and more powerful as you start realizing, like, it's potentially useful to keep a musician around to keep everybody's spirits up, or, specifically setting up for somebody like the Leper with a bunch of accuracy boosts might be just the trick that you need to potentially break down higher kind of health units and whatnot. Things like accuracy buffs end up helping quite a bit. Things like the knight being able to use one of their abilities to make your torchlight last longer does actually pay dividends in the long run. So really fun strategy game. I personally have played the first one a bit. I haven't picked up the second one as of yet, because I was waiting for that one to kind of be done and start going on for a more extreme sale. But picking up both for $20 ain't bad. Ooh, FTL is also on sale. Let's see what's going on there. Yeah, if you've never played FTL, $2.50 is going to get you one of the best strategy games ever made. And no, I'm not talking out of my rear here. This game is incredible. So okay, FTL is essentially a kind of space roguelike kind of thing. Your entire map for your SRPG here is going to be your ship, whatever it happens to be. So you're essentially moving your crew around to different places to keep things running. You've got story events that will end up playing out over time, and depending on your ship's equipment, your situation, the people in your team and whatnot, you can interact with those in different ways. Like you see right there, that guy probably would have more likely gotten torn apart there. Because they didn't have a shield system yet, which actually seems to be what they went for right here. Because things like meteors might be flying around and it would end up hitting the ship, or in some cases you just have something that's really dodgy, so you potentially have folks that are better at putting out fires, because one hit might potentially put your ship on fire and cause catastrophic damage as the fire spreads from system to system. Tons of interactability. As you see right here, they got invaded, so they ended up going and opening up the doors to vent the oxygen out of a room to potentially deal with some of those invaders, or put out a fire, because fires need oxygen to breathe. And despite being just classed as a roguelike, this overwhelmingly positive from 56,000 people, yeah, that's no accident. 250 is, That's beautiful. So yeah, this comes with all of the DLC and stuff already included. Ooh, add soundtrack to other games, you say? Okay, I'm gonna have to cut some stuff out of this cart, but anyway. So that's really good. Hang on, where's Sword of the Stars? Where are we at on this? Because if Stars of the Pit is on sale, I would assume it would be. It's also definitely worth looking into. Let's see. Alright, if it's going to load at some point. Yeah, obviously, Steam sale is going to affect their connection quite a bit. Excuse me. What are we doing? Why is Swords of the Pit not on sale, guys? Okay, you know what? It's not on sale right now, but do yourself a favor. Sword of the Stars of the Pit demo, go check that out at some point. Really fun roguelike. Like, if you like roguelikes at all, this, kind of similar to Darkest Dungeon, is going to be one of those ones where it's kind of infinitely replayable as you learn more and more of the mechanics as you go through. But effectively, think of it as kind of like a roguelike version of something like System Shock 2. Yeah, bit of a shame that that's not on sale. The Pit 2 is on sale. I mean, good for them. Anyway, yeah, okay. I'm making fun of it. It's not like Pit 2 is awful. Just compared to the first one, it's a little half-baked still. It's getting there. Like, little by little, they're working on it. Like, I feel like most of the reviews, if we look at the positive here, are going to be like, it's not quite as good as the first one, but their heart's in the right place. Like, we look at over the reviews. But, you know, $3 is $3, so it is what it is. Okay. Into the Breach is $7.49. This is kind of an interesting one because Into the Breach is an incredible game. I personally would recommend playing it on your phone because the phone version, everyone's got a Netflix subscription and it's free if you've got one. So yeah, personally, that's what I was played it through, just because it's a very convenient format for playing on your phone, and the phone version's incredibly well done. So yeah, this is a strategy game in which you've got essentially kind of full foreknowledge of everything that's happening. And yeah, you have to play a very precise game to try to deal with what is effectively an impossible situation. So yeah, you already know everything. You cannot miss your attacks. There's basically no RNG except for how the map is spawned. So a huge amount of emphasis on taking your turns in the right order, sending out your attacks and knockbacks and whatever else in exactly the right way to potentially solve your little kind of puzzle box of a little map, and you customize your units as you build along, and then if you end up failing your route or you end up completing the game, you then time warp your favorite unit back to wherever they were, and well, favorite unit, I say it's more like your favorite pilot, and then whatever skills they accrued, you can just carry over into your next run. So it's fantastically balanced. Like, this is one of the most impeccably balanced strategy games I think I've ever seen, and that's largely because they keep the numbers really dang low. And realistically speaking, like, doing damage up to a 5 is still impressive by the time you get to the end game. But yeah, it's more so the context. Like, even things like a little thing like this, where there's just one potential like tile that's off, could be catastrophic if played wrong. Anyway, so definitely worth looking into that one. Let's see what else we've got on hand here as far as things that's recommended. Let's go ahead and see what's recommended in the queue here. See if anything in particular ends up sticking out here. This one somebody recommended a little bit of a while ago. I haven't looked into it quite yet. Is this even out yet? No, it has to be out because it's got a thing. I mean, you want to actually bother telling me a price here, dude? Like, that would be good to know. Oh, there we go. $19. So most of the time, just due to how many things are out there, like, this is fine as far as sales go. Most of the time, I'm a complete cheap bastard when it comes to these things. So you know, either way. Looks pretty cool. Kind of looks very kind of XCOM-esque, but I don't know too much about this. I was just recently told go check it out at some point. Looks very enemy unknown from what I can tell. Like, this looks like we've got a lot of our a lot of very XCOM-esque base building and such. So I'll add that to the list and see about picking that up at some point. Let's see what's next. Wasteland, yeah, Wasteland 2 and 3, really solid isometric RPGs. Um, Again, they tend to be just slightly out of that range that I would consider a comfortable go and get it kind of price, but they are generally going to be worth it with fairly large and well done campaigns and what have you. So that's fun there. What else here? Yeah, Caves of Kut. Interesting game. Used to be free at one point. Very, very positive ratings, as you can tell. Still weird to see a game with no graphics that's $20 on sale. But yeah, good stuff there. Actually, the same could be said, I suppose, of if we see what's it, Dwarf Fortress, which finally got a Steam release, but it's like on sale for like $30 now. But again, those are very heavy on their simulation. Okay, this is going to be a very random recommendation here, but Bomber Crew, and if they have it, do they have the space one? Where's all the crew games? Yeah, you can get the entire crew situation or the entire bundle here for $8 as you do, or include all of the space stuff as well for $10, which is kind of nutty. So Bomber Crew is kind of expanded FTL, as it were, where you have your crew of people, and in this case you're flying a bomber, and the other one you're flying a spaceship, and you're kind of managing what everybody's up to. You've got a mission to complete, and you give everybody kind of rough, vague orders, and customize your planes and what have you, in order to go complete whatever your mission was. So yeah, I played. I will say this one is definitely one you want to play on PC. I have it. I have it on Switch, and my God, is it hard to play with that control scheme? Like it is. It's certainly technically playable. But yeah, really fun game though. Very surprisingly chill experience where a lot of the time you're just kind of managing day-to-day stuff, kind of dealing with moving people around, maintaining your ship and your plane and whatnot in this case. And then suddenly all of the serious stuff starts happening. Okay, anyway, we'll go ahead and probably go ahead and add that to the list right now. There we go. Because yeah, definitely worth the $2 that it goes on sale for. All right, what do we have next here? Because I know it's going to recommend something interesting. Like, there's so many good games out there right now. It's wild. Actually, funnily enough, I've always heard great things about Company of Heroes. I have a few of them. I just never really want to play them. Yeah, there we go. There's Dwarf Fortress, currently on sale for $25. Yeah, great game, no graphics. I used to play the free version of this all the time back in the day. Now, I'm just going to mention this here because it's definitely worth picking up at some point. If you've never played Dwarf Fortress, again, right now it's not the cheapest thing, especially considering that it used to be free at one point. But this is one of the most simulation-y games you will ever play ever, where you don't actually take direct command of anything in front of you unless you're playing the roguelike mode that's built in. But effectively, you just give rough commands. You put down instructions for like, okay, mine out these areas are for dumping. Let's instead of saying, okay, here we're gonna go build up our team, you have stuff like, okay, here's our weapon stockpile, here's a training schedule, here's who's going to be managing the training of our soldiers, here's their kind of patrol schedule and whatnot, and you manage all of the logistics, and then the units just attempt to live within the system that you created. So like, it details everything down to people's mood and preferences and whatever else. Units will build relationships with each other. They'll end up having, kind of long histories with everybody else. One of my favorite stories with this one was a story in which there was a guy that was essentially a guy that was crafting doors, and he got really obsessed one day with building the best door that he could. So he was obsessively collecting a bunch of materials, and he was about to go lose his mind because he couldn't get the right types of materials. And then his friend was one of the security guards for the fortress, and so the ballista operators that were meant to be protecting the front gate were asleep that day, and so a bunch of rabid monkeys ended up going and invading through the front door, and they started grabbing people. Well, This guy had his partially completed door that he was working on, and his buddy kept going by to go check on him until that guy ended up getting woken up by this monkey invasion and didn't have time to go grab his weapon. So he stopped by and asked his buddy if he could borrow this door that he was working on, and proceeded to go beat the monkeys to death with this door. At which point he got the bones required to complete the project that he was working on. Again, it's a very, very bizarre kind of almost perfect simulation game. And it's really cool to see it get this improved Steam release here. Uh, easily, probably one of, if not the best simulation games ever created. No questions asked. The sheer history that it puts into every one of your units, your completely generated world and what have you, the interesting rules that follow with every biome. Like if you start off in a place that is so completely evil that there's undead everywhere, you literally have cases where you fish up a lobster and that lobster comes back to life to go attack the fishermen. The logistics of this game, if you love logistics, this is going to be like one of the most head scratching, like just absolutely brain jerker experiences you are ever going to play. So yeah, Dwarf Fortress, absolutely incredible. Not exactly on the cheapest end, but at some point, for some reason, if you love that general idea and you're wondering whether it was worth the price, no other game is like this. So, and I should also probably mention the story basically writes itself. The story is the story of just the world being the world. If you love something that's realistic to the point that there will be long-term grudges held between trade partners that screwed each other, like completely organically in the world, that's what you're going to see here. If it like cases where let's say you run into stuff like elves that love trees, and you try to sell them a bunch of carved up trees in a trade deal, they might just suddenly declare war on you for decades. But yeah, great game. Very difficult, very confusing, but great game. Okay, what kind of weird stuff are they recommending here? Yeah, RimWorld is actually very similar in that particular way. Between the two of those, personally, I actually would take Dwarf Fortress, even though I love the idea behind RimWorld a bit more. But it is what it is. All right, so my voice is starting to give out here, but let's go ahead and take a look at a few things just to kind of see if there's anything extra that's on this list that's worth looking into. Unfortunately, the list is so dang long at this point that it's kind of hard to know what to recommend. There's some stuff that's pretty usual here, like Fallout 3 and New Vegas and stuff like that are in their usual brackets. Stuff like New Vegas is going to be one of the pretty much best RPGs ever made. Stuff like Deus Ex is probably on sale for $2, like it always is. New Vegas again, $5, definitely worth looking into. 3, I think they recently finally made that run, but like New Vegas is incredible. So like $8 for the Ultimate Edition is definitely worth it. The DLCs are surprisingly interesting, though unfortunately it comes with this bullshit right here. So this DLC is annoying. Not because it's actually a bad thing, but because it basically gives you a bunch of overpowered items as you start the game, so every new playthrough has to start with dropping all those stupid things. But yeah, really, I really love this game. Yeah, 1,000 hours on record for a reason. Overwhelmingly positive for a reason. If you love politics, if you love interactive worlds, and you love goofy settings, this is going to be your jam, no questions asked. Very bizarre world. Pretty much anything can happen to anyone at any time. Every NPC can be killed off, and the world will just sort of adapt. And that's why there's quite a few playthroughs that are things like kill everything runs and what have you, where it just can become a completely desolate wasteland. Or if you wanted to just play completely pacifist, you can get through the entire thing without killing anyone at all. Or if you just wanted to follow any oddly specific rule set, like a permadeath vegan challenge, yeah, you can totally do that. It's actually surprisingly fun. If you wanted to just play as a chef, if you just wanted to play as a sneaky guy, or if you wanted to just play as a traitor. Very, very fun game. So it does have a direct storyline. It's an incredibly written storyline. One of the better ones as far as games go, no questions asked. One of the best interactive worlds ever created. It does have issues as far as crashes and bugs and whatnot, but it's one of those things where honestly you just kind of take it as a feature after a while. So yeah, beautiful stuff there. Speaking of, I wonder if Outer Worlds is on sale. Actually, speaking of stuff that's related to other stuff here, it's worth mentioning there's Midnight Suns that's also available from the folks that did XCOM. I don't know if it's still free on there, but what's it? Epic Games had Midnight Suns for free, whereas it was something like $30 on Steam on sale. So just go get it for free. Let's see. Okay, so taking a look at Obsidian's games here real quick. So they're the new Vegas people. Outer Worlds for $15, not bad. I would say between the two of them, just get New Vegas. If you like New Vegas and you want a little bit more of a relatively similar-ish idea, this actually does go on sale for more than this, or a more sale, I should say. Like, I liked Outer Worlds. I like the overall setting. It is like, it doesn't necessarily hold up to New Vegas, but it is still a fun game. The slow-mo system is incredibly fun. Tyranny is a really cool idea, where effectively you're constantly given choices that are more or less bad or worse. That it's effectively a deity that's trying to, well, that has to destroy the world out of obligation, and so it's your job to kind of soften the blow, so to speak, whether to just completely overrun the people that are there, or try to get them to acceptance, or try to get everybody to get along in some way. It's a game of very interesting choice and consequence. So that sounds like your thing. That is right there. Actually, I wonder if Planescape is on here at this point. I would assume so. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, it's actually worth mentioning, as far as anything Obsidian did, due to that, due to what I assume is leftovers of their whole deal with the Epic Game Store, you can get them for free every now and then. Like, the Spacer's Choice Edition, I never would have bought in a million years, but it was free. So, either way, let's see. What was I looking for here? Planescape? Is that thing on sale? I would assume it is. It's usually, yeah, it's, $6. Why is the Enhanced Edition mixed? Huh. Wonder what happened. Yeah, it's actually a little bit more than I would have expected. Pillars of Eternity, though. I really liked Pillars. Like, what's funny is that Pillars is one of these cases of a very interesting isometric RPG with a fun kind of melancholy setting. Lots of really fun sort of D&D-esque mechanics, but it generally flows pretty well. I've heard some folks complain that it isn't as like D&D type of deep as some other ones out there, but for me personally, it was just that right mix. It felt very similar, kind of mechanical depth-wise, to something like Tactics Ogre, and I liked the overall vibes of the setting. Okay, so Pillars of Eternity. One of the things that really appeals about it is that it's not necessarily a just like world-ending, super demonic entity kind of situation that's happening. It is basically a depression plague, more or less. That just ghost babies. Long story short, that people just randomly are not having kiddos because it just like ghosts happen instead. It's weird. It's unsettling, but it's not like such an active threat that it's something that you can directly fight. So it's like people that are going and just kind of dealing with this bizarre situation that they can't solve. But then at the same time, you've got your usual, politics and interesting RPG stuff going on. And additionally, you've got stuff like permadeath modes built in. You've got challenge mode runs built in. So yeah, fun game. Definitely worth the $7 there. Only 154, that's really all that took for 2 playthroughs. Okay, so it's apparently not the longest game in the world, but still pretty fun there. The kind of add-ons and stuff like that are usually pretty cheap. I'm wondering what's... Is that really with everything already discounted? I mean, fair enough, I guess. There's an achievement for completing all of this stuff with a solo character on permadeath. Anyway, so it's a fun system. I would say, as far as IRPGs go, that's probably one of my personal favorites. But mostly mentioning it because Planescape Torment, while it probably has the better written story and setting and whatever else, even the Enhanced Edition is generally a bit harder to kind of read through. It, despite both of them being very text heavy, I personally found Planescape to be harder to read through. I know it's an oddly specific thing because, again, Planescape is objectively written better. It's just the presentation. Like, the presentation of it just makes it hard to read. And I mostly mention it because they're basically the same price. So if you were to pick one place to start and maybe you're unfamiliar with IRPGs, maybe start with Pillars first and what have you. The overall systems in Torment, like, this is one of those ones that honestly nobody would probably judge you if you went and just, for example, went and watched the Resident Arc podcast with some of the spoilers on or what have you, for going and learning about the story and setting and cool things that this game is trying to do, rather than going and playing it. So yeah, definitely accurate on the bizarre world and interesting story. Again, one of the kind of coolest overall stories I've seen in anything. It's just yeah, it's a little hard to digest these days, presentation wise. So there's that. Okay, let's see what else we've got in here because this is running a little bit long at this point. I don't know why we're looking through this. Let's go ahead and give one more look through the featured page and see if there's something in particular we want to look for. I think I mentioned earlier Disco Elysium, $4. You don't see that for that cheap that often. Celeste is also one of those ones that's generally held up as just an absolutely excellent platformer. Again, only $2. Let's see what else is on here because there's just there's a lot of really great stuff on sale here. To me personally, the main downside is just the fact that there's no time to play all of these things. Otherwise, I'd be picking up way more. Civ 6 is a hell of a lot of fun. $3 definitely worth that one there. See, Arma, if you're into military simulator kind of situations, I think this comes with DayZ, which a lot of folks consider to be the best zombie thing that was ever made. Witcher 3 for $4 is absolutely excellent. Borderlands 2 for $3 is also really darn good. I personally have this on the Vita. It plays worse, but you know it fits in your pants, so it is what it is. So yeah, that's great stuff there. The Batman games are great. I just you don't really feel like playing them. Ooh, Shadow of War. Okay, yeah, Shadow of War is also excellent. So yeah, Shadow of War is basically, or wait, is this the new one? Dang it, I don't know if this might be the new one actually, because it's offering it for sale. Okay, where's the first one? What's the first one for? Um, is it gonna mention the first one? Like, I don't know. Whatever the first one was called, I really loved. The sequel I heard kind of mixed things about, but this one you play because of the Nemesis system. The general idea is that there's kind of bosses with randomized traits to them, and then oh, hang on, it's making noises. Why are you making noises? But as you play through the game, your bosses effectively will kind of do their own political agenda off in the background, or will kind of join up with you, or betray you, or what have you. And then everyone's name is impossible to pronounce, so kind of whatever there. But yeah, personally, I loved the first one. I don't know that much about the second one outside of some of the controversies that it had for apparently doing some weird linear stuff. I don't know. Don't know, don't care. The first one was really fun. I would assume it's probably also on sale. I don't know why it's not sitting here as related to this one. Like, let's see. Is it going to be in here somewhere? Yeah, here it is. It's more, as it probably should be. So yeah, really loved this one. Okay. All right. Let's see. Anything else that we maybe want to cover here? It's going to be slow to load. Let's go ahead and just kind of look through stuff here. All right. I saw Udian Chronicles is on sale, so that's probably worth looking into if you haven't yet. If you like Suikoden and stuff like that, Udian is going to be the new Suikoden for all intents and purposes. Crystal Project, if you love exploration and platforming in this kind of stage. This is one of the most chill kind of indies I've played in a really long time, and yes, you do have scrolls called nutters and whatnot. So very like if you're looking for a kind of traditional RPG with really fun exploration, if you like something like 3D Dot Game Heroes or whatnot, this is just a really fun one to platform around. It's just a very fun world to explore. Very kind of chill vibes to the whole thing. So probably one of the better relaxation RPGs I've ever seen. Let's see here. Risk of Rain 2, surely that has to be on sale. Like, that's friggin' always on sale. Yeah, $8 ain't bad. Not at all. So yeah, Risk of Rain 2 is kind of like a third-person shooter roguelike type thing. But the way that it works is that you are put into a stage. These are semi-randomized. So effectively, the layouts are a selection of various layouts, but everything that's in them is going to be randomized. And essentially, you're fighting things in order to get money. Use that money to buy items, and those items modify your character. And then you're trying to survive, opening up a teleporter that is somewhere in that level. As you're fighting through, you're trying to collect as many items as possible to modify yourself in as many ways as possible, and the entire time, like, just all hell is breaking loose. It's got one hell of an amazing soundtrack. Like, look up the color previously known as purple. And it is like it's going to blow your frickin' mind as far as being great tracks. Yeah, definitely, again, earned that overwhelmingly positive. The shooting is really satisfying. The movement is really satisfying. Yeah, this is one of those ones you can just basically play forever. So yeah, it's a ton of fun. Would definitely recommend this one. $8 is definitely not bad. I've heard mixed stuff about the Survivors of the Void. But yeah, it's good stuff. Anywho, also Dead Cells I've heard great things about, but I constantly get that mixed up with other games. Anyway, let's go ahead and see where's your store page for Battle Brothers. What's it at these days? Because Battle Brothers is also a very fun simulation game. It has a tendency to show up on the higher end price-wise, though. So in this case, this is a more kind of campaign-based kind of game, something like your Mountain Blades and what have you. But effectively, you're a band of mercenaries. You take contracts, and then you try to complete those contracts in whatever way you can, with combat that is very kind of, I guess you could say, semi-realistically simulated. So things like different types of weapons working better against different types of armor, shields being extremely effective, that kind of thing. And effectively, yeah, you're doing this whole SRPG kind of thing, trying to keep your people from getting permanently wounded. And then over time, a story kind of develops, and there is eventually an end game and what have you. And yeah, it's if you like this sort of like grim reality kind of setting, where all of your people are mortal and you're basically just suddenly dealing with a lot of unexpected things, whether there's a big war that breaks out, whether it's a whole like Lord of the Rings type situation that breaks out, zombie invasion, what have you. There's a lot of things that can potentially happen. But if you like thinking about things like, well, that wolf is pretty fast, and maybe a shield and dagger might be better at protecting me than, something like trying to hit something that quick with a crossbow, then this might be exactly what you're looking for. So yeah, really fun game, very difficult though. So just bear that in mind that it can and will whoop your ass repeatedly, and also tends to be on the more expensive side of things. So kind of be sure that it's your kind of thing before committing to double digits, as it were. But yeah, we definitely recommend it. Funnily enough, actually, in terms of Battle Brothers, it's worth mentioning this if you would prefer. It's actually cheaper on the Switch, and additionally, I think the control scheme is actually better on the Switch. Like, you have mouse and keyboard on PC for sure, but I personally found that the button layout on Switch made more sense than the checking. Okay, that was weird. So, it appears that our random. Oof, and there goes the sound. Okay, we're gonna have to wrap it up here. Okay, so here, last couple of recommendations if it'll still work, because apparently our chronic loading, our chronic random blackout situation is still happening. We had a storm over the course of the last week, so we're just kind of randomly getting issues. Okay, if you're gonna ever try the Saints Row series, ignore the newest one. Saints Row 2 is $2. This is, in my opinion, the best of the series, like as far as customization, as far as just kind of cool things you can do and whatnot. this is an insanely good game. You'll notice that it has very mixed reviews, and part of the reason for this is because the PC version technically sucks compared to the original version that you can't get anymore on the consoles. The thing is, there's a mod called Gentlemen of the Row that absolutely just takes this game to a whole new level. It is incredibly fun. It is a really fun thing, and unfortunately, this one has a bizarre history where, as of recently, there was the guy that actually was that had made Gentleman of the Row there had actually been officially hired by I think it was originally Volition. To fix the PC version that launched completely broken. It was supposed to include all of the things from that mod to some degree, and they were going to do an official release. Unfortunately, there were financial troubles that ended up hitting the company. There was some guy that got hired that ended up going and sabotaging the project for some reason and just running off with a paycheck. The guy that was working on that mod, as I understand it, died of cancer, and then somebody else supposedly picked up the project. I'm assuming that's where we see a lot of these mixed reviews right now. Um, but yeah, just so you know, great game. Ignore the background stuff. Pick up the Gentleman of the Row mod, and you are going to have one of the best, not one of, I would say, best open world experience. Full stop. It's incredible. So definitely worth checking out. Also, Kingdom Come. I know for a fact that one's on sale right now. Because yeah, wait, really? Okay, $5 is still incredible for Kingdom Come. This is effectively a sort of medieval simulator kind of thing. There is a storyline to follow, but the general idea is that you're kind of doing the sort of realistic living in Bohemia back in the day life, as it were. So you're trying to sword fight realistically. You're using your armor realistically. You basically save by being a functional alcoholic. Um, it's it's aiming for that kind of sweet spot between fun simulation stuff and kind of reality of living in this setting back in the day. So yeah, very very cool game. The reason I was actually surprised at the price here, this is currently $3 on PS4. So that's interesting. Anyway, so yeah, definitely worth checking out though. So if you are, for example, looking for it on the PlayStation side of things, for some reason it's $3 there. Yes, I did plan to remote play that on a Vita. Don't fight me on that. And then it is $6 on PC. But yeah, great game. It depends. You got to be the right kind of person for that. You got to like appreciating the historical details over where they put their stove in their house and whatnot. Okay, we've also got Time Break Chronicles. That's going to be $8.99. Very very fun idea. This is effectively like you saw how we were talking about FTL earlier, and it was just an incredible format for a game. And it's basically, what if it was that, but then classic JRPG. So this is one of those games that's absolutely cracked out of its mind in terms of the number of characters that you can actually get. The whole idea is that it's a kind of fully functional time paradox type situation where all worlds have sort of mixed into one. You've got characters and archetypes from basically everything. There is a story mode if you'd like, but I personally find the sort of they call it roguelike mode, but basically FTL mode. I personally really like that one, but really fun game. Like, this is one of those ones that you can sort of sit down, swear you're going to do one run, and then hours disappear. So yeah, I think this one didn't have a demo. I don't remember if it had a demo, but I did a few videos on this one, and was planning to stream it at some point too. But yeah, also another really fun gem to check out for fairly cheap, so worth giving a look there. It's still actively getting updates and doing development and all of that. We've got the usual Resident Evil being on sale for $5 across the board for most of them, except for the new ones that are like 15, and the remakes that are 10. Easily worth it, but they're also on sale for the same price all the dang time. Genesis Classics, how are they looking these days? So yeah, Genesis Classics is worth checking out, largely because if you go look at the workshop, there's just basically a bunch of games that it doesn't actually have available here that you can just sort of play in there, and I'm really surprised that they're getting away with that. Anyway, let's see, up to 55% off. What do we have here? I mean, everything's about $1. $1 to $5. Neat. Sure, okay. Unfortunately, you saw that there were mixed reviews. More than likely, those mixed reviews are because when the kind of Sonic Origins collection came out, they took away some of the Sonic games from this one, which, kind of sucks, but for the people that already had it, they already had it. Okay, let's see. Yeah, most of this other stuff is stuff that you'd see for relatively cheap. Anyway, what's Symphony of War looking like these days? Because that's also another really, again, earning that overwhelmingly positive. Ignore the sort of kind of romance novel-looking visuals in some cases. This is a really solid strategy game that's a mix of Ogre Battle and Fire Emblem, for those that makes sense to. The mechanics are a ton of fun, being, again, this kind of fun team building situation where you kind of build a bunch of different counter units for different situations. It's got fun ambush mechanics where, for example, stealth units will disappear at the start of a fight and ambush a unit's back lines and whatnot, which I'm hoping they'll show us here. It's got some story interaction, though I'm not entirely sure what that does exactly. Yeah, this is just... it's a real gem of a thing. It's 50% off right now. I want to say I've seen that for less, but it's also definitely not bad. Like, if you're somebody that appreciates the classic Ogre Battle or something, you would absolutely love something like Symphony of War here. Its DLC is fairly cheap as well, so you can get the whole thing with DLC for $15 right now. Again, if it depends on who you are, whether that's worth it to you. For me personally, I think that's a pretty solid thing. Okay, let's see. Ooh, what's Chimera Squad up to these days? Because this is also worth checking out if you liked the old XCOM games there. $3, definitely worth it. Why are we looking mixed? What happened? Let's see. Oh, 2K launcher. Oh, that sucks. Uh-oh. That's a problem. 2K, what are you doing? Please don't. Don't add weird launchers to stuff, please. Okay, so somebody's gonna mod that out, and then it'll be fixed. Okay, but yeah, this game's worth checking out, though. General idea is you have the kind of new XCOM experience, but instead you are a sort of small police squad doing a sort of smaller scale roguelike kind of thing. Your team is locked in, so you're no longer customizing your units, but it does have this kind of cool breach mechanic where essentially you are trying to rush every room. It does have the downside that if you lose a single unit, you restart the map, but again, it works for what it is. It's a little experimental take on the XCOM formula, and it's a lot of fun. Again, mostly positive for a reason. The main downside seems to be that launcher that was there. So yeah, that will be... Ooh. I would say that was about it. Is this... Okay, you know what? That's actually probably worth looking into, too. Okay, so this is an old one that a friend recommended. Alrighty, thank you, backup battery thing. Okay, yeah, it's definitely time to wrap this up here. So this is the last one I'm going to throw out here for the time being. That's I'm Not a Monster, First Contact. Again, another kind of XCOM-like here. Cool idea. Cool idea here, that it's kind of a old, kind of a pulpy space adventure kind of vibe to this one. It's just a cool setting. Just kind of look at the Steam page, you'll see what I mean. You're basically playing as a guy that's totally not Flash Gordon, who's more or less a kind of functional alcoholic type situation. But yeah, fun skill combinations between your units there. Again, no customization in this one. It's just kind of going all for the setting and whatnot. I haven't played this one too much, but what I did play was a ton of fun. So still, buy that for $1, basically. And I'm hoping this isn't one of those situations. Like, for all of the above, I should probably mention, because this tends to come up a lot, we did see the occasional kind of mixed review or whatnot on this list. just bear in mind, look, I don't know what all these various developers are up to at any given time, so if there's any recommendation where somebody had some funky controversy that I haven't heard of, my bad, I haven't heard of it. I don't really have time to keep track of all those things. So, yeah, I kind of just judge them based on whether the game was fun or not. In fact, one more thing. Let's see if SteamWorld Heist is on sale, because I'm sure it is. Hell yeah! Okay, $1. SteamWorld Heist, and frankly, everything SteamWorld related, definitely worth it. Like, for $1, that is insane. Is the DLC worth it? I mean, sure. Why not? I mean, at that point, it's still only $3. But yeah, so cool system. Again, XCOM-like in terms of its turn structure, but the idea is that you're effectively kind of sniping and ricocheting bullets and whatnot. And so this leads to fun combinations where it's like, okay, you got one unit whose skill is that if they haven't moved, they can attack twice, and then you have some other skill that can combine with that that essentially doubles the burst kind of duration of burst fire weapons. And so, for example, now they've got potentially a kind of 4-shot burst coming out of a minigun, and then you're potentially boosting them up by another boost skill and whatnot. And so now you're ricocheting all these bullets around a corner coming out of this minigun thing there, and they're clearing out an entire room just just by the right combination of items and whatnot. So very kinetic game, as you can see from the previews here. A fun mix of kind of field mechanics and weapons and whatever else. And those slow-mo effects aren't even a thing for the trailer there. They do actually happen in game, where if you get a cool kill, it'll just go and do a bunch of slow-mo effects and whatnot. Once again, very much earned that positive here. Let's see. Based on your preferences, reviews on these periods have been excluded. Interesting. I never noticed that it had little asterisks next to those. So yeah, again, very, very fun game. Things like ricocheting bullets around shields and whatnot is just a ton of fun. Has hard modes if you'd prefer, and yeah, this is one of those ones that's basically intended to be played like in a sort of perfect manner, so to speak. So like the hard mode is effectively to win the kind of highest ratings and whatnot. You have cases where your units basically just never end up getting knocked out or whatnot, and it's actually a really fun challenge. Okay, so that is about that. That's all I have time for before the friggin' power goes out again. So, y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care. Thank you for stopping by with this incredibly long kind of Steam discussion here. And I hope there was at least some stuff that helps you out. Okay, see you later.